Welcome to the Attractions Group Podcast, episode 17. I'm Ryan Suhr. With me, as always, is Don Helbig. Don, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. IAPA right around the corner next week. Really looking forward to that. And that's a segue into our guest on the Attractions Group podcast. We'd like to welcome in Matthew Miller. He's the Senior Director of Technology and Business Development for the Orlando Informer. It's a very popular website all about the Central Florida theme park scene. Matthew, welcome to the podcast and tell us about the Orlando Informer.
Hey guys, well it's great to speak with you today.
Thanks for being
for
on.
having me. And yeah, so at Informer, LearnInformer.com, we're a website. We cover all the parks, in Central Florida, and we're just a bunch of theme parks. We're able to do daytime ticket at evening events that we call the Orlando Informer Meetup. And our hope is, if you come to the site, that we've got the information that can help you have a better trip and make the most of your time at the theme park. So again, thanks for having me today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on. Really, it's really an honor. How did you get started doing the Orlando Informer?
Well, I didn't start it. The gentleman that I work with now, his name's Taylor Strickland. He's the owner, the CEO of it. And actually, my involvement goes way back to 2012. At that time, Taylor, he was a middle schooler, and I was speaking at a media event for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, man, one day can I do what you're doing?" And I said, "Sure." So he'd come up one Saturday a month, and we'd spend time in the parks together. And over time, we just built a relationship. And I thought a lot of him, and I could kind of tell out the gate, he was going to be something special. And long story short, as I was mentoring him, he had a chance to start working at Orlando Informer, which later turned into an opportunity for him to acquire Orlando Informer. And then while I was working at Universal, he said, "Hey, you know what? We've known each other for a while. I think we get along well. I think we could run a business together. Would you come over and help me?" So I ended up leaving Universal and came over to help him run the business, and been there for just over 3 years now.
All right. Well, Matthew, aside from the website, where else can people find the Orlando Informer? What are the other things that you're known for? Where else are people gonna come across you?
Sure. So I think where you're really going to see us is on social media. If it's YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, we love our social media presence, and we love connecting with our community on social media. So that's a big place, especially we've got a universal community by Orlando Informer. I think we're up to about 155,000 members of that community as of today. And that is a great way, for folks to join in. They can hang out with like-minded people, and they can obviously see what we're up to as well. But Orlando Informer across all social media channels, you'll be able to find us.
Right now, you mentioned TikTok. That's a new emerging channel that last couple of years has really taken off. How does that fit with what you do?
So for us, the way that it fits is we've got some videographers and some photographers that we're really proud of. Shout out to Trevor if he's watching this. He's one of the leaders over there. And we're able to take video content, place it on TikTok, and some of those videos, they really shoot up, in terms of viewership. And one cool thing about it is like you've got your existing community that follows you and watches it, but also if you have a video that takes off, let's say 10, 20, 100,000 views, then you get exposure to people that maybe love the theme parks, but they're not familiar with you. So obviously, due to the TikTok algorithm, they're seeing your content. Who's Orlando Informer? Wow, this is a really cool video. And then it gives us an opportunity to meet new people and to allow them to be a part of our community as well.
All right.
Awesome. So you're one of the accepted experts in the the Orlando theme park scene. So tell me about your thoughts on like the Disney reservation system. Do you think that helps the guest experience, or do you think that is a deterrent of the guest experience?
I think that this is a trick question. I think that it depends on how you use it. So I feel that if you are someone that really understands the parks, right? So let me take a pause. From a business standpoint, it makes sense, right? If I want to be able to control crowd flow, number of people in a park, number of people in an attraction, right? Want to do some QLA stuff, that sort of thing, it's great. And if I am a guest that understands that, while I may not love some things about it, like, hey, I can't, get some things until 7 a.m. the day of. Hey, there's some things that maybe run out more quickly than I would like. But if I have an understanding of it, it really gives me an opportunity to do some things compared to, let's say that, Joe from Idaho, right? I come to Disney once every 4 years. I think there's 3 parks, maybe there's 6. I'm not sure, but I love Mickey Mouse. Like, where am I going to see them at? And then I go to the park and suddenly I'm told, hey, you need a reservation for this. Do you have the mobile app? Like, you can't just get in line for this attraction anymore. You had to be here 4 hours ago to, to be able to get a reservation and get on the attraction. That is when I feel like, it can be tricky and it can possibly hurt the guest experience for some people. Another thing too that I think is telling is, there are some, bloggers, groups or whatever, that they're starting a business model of just teaching that product to others. Like, hey, you're coming to Disney, right? Like, I can teach you how to use the app. I can teach you how to make a reservation. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? I mean, heck, in our business, we want to inform people. We want to help them learn how to use things. But if it is so complex that the general public can't easily understand it, then I think that on the long term could be a problem.
All right. Well, Matthew, Universal, they're certainly on the move with the addition of Epic Universe. What are your thoughts on what you've heard so far about that project?
So, one, I'm very excited. I got to tell you, I live in Central Florida, so I drive by the convention center, driving down to the airport. You can't miss it. It looks like there's 36 cranes out there. I don't know how many. And heck, when you guys come for IAPA next week, you're not going to be able to miss it. I mean, you're going on the interstate, you're going to see, what appears to be sound stages, attractions getting built, and just rows and rows of cranes. In terms of what is going into the park, obviously don't want to speak about any rumors. Universal has held their cards very close to their chest. I believe that, they did make an announcement about Super Nintendo World coming. We've seen that in Osaka. They're opening up a version of it in Hollywood, University of Hollywood, and they've announced it is coming to Epic Universe. But outside of that, there's a lot of speculation, but nothing that's been announced, right? So I'm going to stay away from that for now. But what I will say is location, location, location. I think it is amazing that they are just a stone's throw away from the convention center, right in the middle of Orlando. All of that convention traffic, the new train that they're wanting to bring in. It's right next to the main interstate line that goes to the airport. I think it's a perfect location.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sticking on the subject of the theme parks in Orlando, SeaWorld just announced a surf coaster, and that's been,
Yeah.
very anticipated and rumored and patents being pulled and stuff. What are your thoughts on the surf coaster product?
I'm excited. I've got to tell you, I haven't been on a lot of stand-up coasters, but I've been on a couple. They weren't necessarily the most comfortable experience for me, but this one looks like it's got a couple of things that I've never experienced before. One is it has a launch as a stand-up coaster. That is not something that I've ever been on before, and I don't think there are others. There may be. Somebody can fact check me on that. But if that's not brand new, that is super unique. But what really stands out to me is if you watch some of the animations they've released, they've talked about on the RVs, on the ride vehicle, this new design that makes it so you're hopping waves. And you'll see in the video, the animation of the guests that are riding it, they appear to bounce sort of in the seat, if you will. You can see their knees going up and down. That is super unique to have this ride vehicle on a coaster, that can move in that manner. I'm excited to see, does it feel like you're surfing? I think it will. So we'll see how it comes out.
All right. Well, Matthew, circling back to the Disney parks, my all-time favorite show, Fantasmic, it returned last week. Talk about, your thoughts on that show and its return.
One, I got to be honest with you, I didn't know if it was going to come back. After COVID, some things were cut. It's been a while. There wasn't really, any announcements of like, hey, a year from now this is coming. It just kind of sat there dormant, and then suddenly it's like, hey, it is coming back. Not only is it coming back, there's going to be some changes to it. So I love Fantasmic. That is one of my, if not favorite, live show that Disney puts on. I think it's a great end of the night there at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And we've had some people. Now, I personally did not go out last week, but we had some people from our team that did. Might have saw some of the photos, just thousands of people that showed up, just a crowd, a sea of people. But they were able to get in and loved it. Obviously the overall show is still basically the same, but some new effects, some new show scenes, some new IPs, characters added. So really happy to see it back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw the photo of just the crowds upon crowds of people back by, I think it's God, I haven't been to Hollywood Studios in a while, but near like where the Beauty and the Beast show is and stuff. Just this
Hmm.
was at like 3 o'clock, so hours and hours away from the actual show. So kudos to them. Excited about that as well. But yeah, a couple hundred, well, couple miles away over at Epcot. Kind of a different story. They had Illuminations, which, in my opinion, is the greatest show that's ever happened in the history of the world. And they've had a little bit of trouble, like kind of a tumultuous history of replacing it. It seems like it had some big shoes to fill, and um, there's a bit of a scramble now because they had a temporary show, and then they replaced it, and now they're talking about replacing it again. What are your thoughts on that? That whole situation?
Yeah, that's a tough one. When these parks go and do their master planning, you never really know what that is, right? So obviously, all the major parks, really any park, they never show their full plan to begin with, right? So, it's kind of hard to say, was the initial plan, hey, over the next 4 years, we're going to do a new show every year, roughly. My thought is that probably was not the original plan, but, I don't want to speak for them. Maybe it was. But you're right. We're replacing it, and then we've got a new show. But this is, we got Epcot Forever, but that isn't the new show. That's just kind of the mid new show. And there's another new show coming. We hope you love it. Okay, well, it hasn't been out that long. We've got the anniversary year ending. We're gonna go ahead and replace it again. So honestly, I think part of it is just guest confusion. Like especially if you're a guest that comes once every 3-4 years. This is the second or third iteration of that show since your previous trip to Walt Disney World. And maybe you're still looking for the original Illuminations, or maybe you've heard about Epcot or whatever the next show is. I feel like there's a lot of confusion there.
All right, Matthew, the industry, the parks, they've just wrapped up the Halloween season. Some of the most recognizable Halloween events in the industry right there in Central Florida. You got Universal, what they do, Disney, what they do, SeaWorld. What are your thoughts on these types of events, and what are the elements of them that really appeals to you the most?
So my thought is, one, it is fantastic for business. It's for the theme park business. A lot of them claim it as another quarter for the year, a 13th month for the year. If you think about it, for the month of October, and now really for the month of September and October, they've got daytime visitation during the day. And then a lot of them are a separate ticketed event. So then they're filling up the parks again in the evening. So to be able to get 2 tickets in one day, that's a heck of a thing to be able to do. And I think that it's telling every year, even if it's just by a couple of days, the events are either getting longer, more nights are being added in the middle, or they're starting a little bit sooner. Heck, you look at like SeaWorld, Universal, starting sort of that first weekend of September, but Disney, they're like, hey, what can we do in August, right? I mean, I wasn't even thinking about Halloween quite yet. They're ready to get folks out there. So I think that is great. I will say though that the main storyline, in my opinion, is SeaWorld making the strategic decision to bring Howl-O-Scream to Orlando. I feel like that is something that people maybe have heard, but they kind of overlooked, or maybe they didn't realize how big of a deal it was. For years, you had Universal Orlando that did Halloween Horror Nights, and then SeaWorld Orlando, they had Spooktacular for the kids, and then Disney obviously had their Halloween offerings. And then really the only other like major spooky event in Central Florida was Howl-O-Scream at Busch Gardens. And 2 years ago, they said, hey, this second year they're doing it, they said, hey, let's bring it to Orlando, and we feel that our product can go head to head with, Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. And I just think that's cool. I think that business and competition makes everybody better, right? If we're competing. But I think that's really cool. And I've enjoyed the event. I think they've done a heck of a job bringing it, even though it's just, in its second year, they're doing a really good job out there.
Yeah, this year was the first time I really started hearing a lot about what SeaWorld was doing during the Halloween season.
Yeah, they've done a great job. And what I really like about it is obviously it's new. So, it's hard to compare something that's in its first or second year to an event that's in its, 30 plus years. But that being said, it doesn't feel like there's that big of a gap, in my personal opinion. It isn't like you go to SeaWorld and they just have one haunted house, or maybe other events, have 8, 9, 10. Obviously there's still room to grow. But I thought they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the how it's like the fifth quarter, because I've got friends that work for Universal and other parks down there like that, and it's like that asking what business is like those days. It's like, well, on days when there's horror nights, it's 2 days in one. You get a full park during the day, it clears out. You get a full park at night. You know, so that's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. But kind of shifting gears here a little bit. One of your recent blogs that's on OrlandoInformer.com talks about vegan options at Halloween Horror Nights. Are you a fan of park food? And what's some of your favorite?
I am a fan of park food. And first, I want to say not only am I a fan of park food, I am a fan of that article and theme parks doing what is happening in that article where they are expanding the offerings to others, right? If there's certain cuisine that maybe you're allergic to and that you can't have, if there's certain things that you prefer over the other. I love when parks are saying, "Hey, hot dog and a hamburger, chicken fingers isn't going to cut it for everybody. What else can we do?" I mean, obviously they don't always get it right, but I'm a big fan of
Hmm.
the parks expanding their offerings like that. And of course, am I a fan of food? Of course, I am a fan of food. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite, but I got to tell you, SeaWorld, the SeaWorld parks in at Busch Gardens, they run this deal. It's an all-day dine deal where you can get your ticket and then you can eat a full meal. I'm talking entree, sides, and a drink every 60 to 90 minutes. I think that's the best deal in town. I mean, I can eat a lunch, every 90 minutes. That's my kind of place. So theme park food.
Oh, awesome.
All right. Well, down there in Central Florida, you've got so much to see and do. It obviously keeps you pretty busy with the Orlando Informer, with everything that's happening with the parks there. But do you ever get a chance to travel outside of Florida much? Go to some other parks? And if so, what are some of your favorites?
I do. I actually just got back from one of my favorites, which is Dollywood. I was up in Pigeon Forge and had a chance to spend a day at Dollywood, meet with some people there. So I had a wonderful time at that park. It's a wonderful park, and it's ran by some wonderful people. And that is not a sponsored. They made me say that. I don't have a business deal with them. That's just personal opinion. I love Dollywood, and I love the people there behind that product. Spent some time in Valdosta, Georgia. My home park actually used to be Miracle Strip in Panama City Beach. Closed for a few years now, but growing up to there. But yeah, I spent most of my time in Central Florida, but I do get to venture out every once in
All
a
right.
while.
You mentioned Dollywood. What's your favorite attraction there?
Oh man, at Dollywood, they got some really good coasters. I feel like they've got great coasters. Sometimes you throw green paint on something and you call it an IP or whatever the case is. But from man, I'm gonna have to go with all of the major coasters at Dollywood, especially because when I was there a week ago, I rode all of them in under like 45 minutes. I got there super early in the morning. It was freezing for this Florida boy, but I put on as many jackets I could. And Fire Express, the Eagle Coaster, Lightning Rod. I mean, all of them. I just
Yeah,
love them.
Yeah, my favorite attraction there is the Dollywood Express.
I like Mystery
Uh,
Mine.
that's
Yeah,
probably right
Mystery
behind
Mine is
Mystery
so
Mine
cool. I
for
love
me.
the vertical lift hills and stuff. I think that's so neat. I also like what do they call Fire in the Hole at that park? I'm trying to think of it. Um, Blazing Fury. I think that's so fun.
Oh, Blazing Fury. Are you talking about a show? Yeah, Blazing Fury. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Anyway, so Don and I have talked a lot about the impact of smartphones, particularly mobile apps in parks. And most people agree that Disney's kind of at the forefront of that because they were the first to have reservations and so on. Um, how do you think that apps and smartphones affect a park experience?
Gosh, that's a big one. So one, they definitely impact the park experience. You can say that it's positive, you can say that it's negative, but there is a huge impact, whichever is positive. So I'm a personal believer of the app. I think that parks should have an app. Now, I think that there are different tiers of those apps. Some parks you go to, maybe you go to a regional park, all they have is like a PDF version of their map. Personally, I would prefer a little bit more than that. Then you can start getting into apps that do things where you can make park reservations, like you were saying. I can make purchases. If I want to buy an express pass or a lightning lane or whatever the case is, they've removed some friction in those purchases. I really like that. And then on top of that, some parks are doing interactive features within their apps. I can walk by a show set scene and I can make a light flicker, or there's some type of story. That is really cool. The only problem with that is when you add those things, often it makes the app. So sometimes people I don't know, download something too big on my phone. But also things like that, they're really cool. But to get the impact, especially on the interactive portions, you've got to know that they're there. Like, you've got to know, like, hey, like, there's this cool augmented reality overlay, and it only works in this land at this park. And the parks work really hard to make this incredible experience. But if I don't know it's there, or if I don't fully understand how to work it, then I think that it's a lost experience. Last thing I'll say about the app, I don't think that it should ever be seen as something that would replace the park or compete with the park. My personal opinion, the worst thing that can happen is you build this incredible $1 billion land and everybody walks in, they're just looking down at their phone. You don't want that to happen. I think that it should be a complement to what is happening in the park, and not a deterrent.
Yeah, Matthew, I 100% agree with you there on that. Ryan and I, we've also discussed like the augmented offerings, things like fast passes, VIP tours, dining plans, things like that. Do you see the trend toward this as a good thing for the industry in the parks? If so, what are your favorite, we'll call it upgrade experiences that you've paid for?
I am a fan of upgraded experiences, but I'm only a fan of the upgraded experience if it offers me something that I didn't think I should already be getting when I bought my park ticket. Personally, the worst feeling in the world is to feel like I'm getting nickel and dimed at a park. Now, if I go to park and I know that it is a pay per attraction type thing, doesn't bother me. If I'm going to a fair or something like that, I know what I'm getting myself into. But if I'm going to, a large scale theme park where I think I am purchasing a ticket, and then once I get into the park, now on top of that, I'm having to pay for, a lot of amenities or other things that either used to be included pre-COVID or that I feel should be. Not a big fan of that. In terms of, is it good for the business? One, I think it's good for the theme parks because they wouldn't be doing it if they weren't making money off of it. Two, I think it's good for the guest experience because, if I have the disposable income to be able to purchase these things, there are some parks where I can really get some cool experiences. And you think about, like, you're talking about my favorites, the Universal Express pass at Universal Orlando. I think that's incredible. And that's pretty simple. If you compare like the way that Universal does it to the way that Disney does it, you can say one's better than the other. It won't hurt my feelings either way. But the Universal one, very simplistic, right? I'm either going to buy a pass and I can, skip the lines, go through the Universal Express queue, or I can stay on site. And I think that staying on site at a Universal Orlando Resort hotel that allows you to have Universal Express, that's one of the best deals in the business. It's easy. I don't have to make reservations. I can get it. I can go into the park. That.
Yeah. Shout out to Portofino, my favorite Universal, my favorite Universal resort. I think that's the coolest one there with the little in cove of the lake that comes in from the canal and so on. Anyway, so another blog on your site, this one by Kaylin Nichols, pits Velocicoaster versus Hagrid's. She basically puts them up as a tie. What's your preference between the two, if you have one, of course?
So I think that it is a tie, and I think that the tiebreaker is me as a consumer or a guest, right? Me as a guest, what do I prefer? If I go and get on Hagrid's and I'm looking for a replacement of Top Thrill Dragster, pointed.
Right.
If I'm going on Velocicoaster and I enjoy these, but I'm looking for more of a, more special effects. Not that I would be disappointed, but I think that Hagrid's would outrank them. It's so close, but for me personally, I think Hagrid's is still my favorite. I love, spoiler alert, I love frontwards, backwards, multiple launches. I think that the track experience is just so unique compared to Velocicoaster. Coaster is an incredible attraction, but for the most part, the elements in that coaster aren't unique to that coaster. there are some special things about it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get hate mail. I love that roller coaster. But what makes Velocicoaster cool is those elements that maybe are no places, right? But the way that they are themed inside the Raptor paddock and the way that the story combines into those thrills, that's what makes it so unique. Versus Hagrid's, and you look at, there's some comparable things. Let's say like a Tron, right? It's not the only side by side coaster. I understand that, but just story. You're on the bike, you're on the sidecar. I've got to go with Hagrid's.
All right. Well, great insights there. And just to wrap things up, one more time, where can our listeners, again, find your blog, these great ticket deals and things that you have? Talk about that.
Sure. So you can find everything that we do by searching for Orlando Informer on any social media platform. And then you'll see a link there that will take you to orlandoinformer.com. So at orlandoinformer.com on our homepage, you'll see everything from news to what's happening into the theme parks. So if you are looking for tickets or anything else on top of that, you'll be able to find it at orlandoinformer.com.
All right.
For that. All right, so at this point in the show, we normally do this thing called Pick Six, where Don and I pick 6 stories or patents or, anything that's come out from the industry in the last week that we found interesting and we want to discuss. But since we have a special guest on today, we're going to have a special segment. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a segment called Do Not Miss. And Don and I are going to go back and forth, and we're going to ping Matthew with a different category and a different park. And he's going to tell us the item not to miss, whether it's a ride, a show, or whatever. So let's start off with the rides. Matthew, what is the do not miss ride at Disney World as a whole?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Rise. I know that that's kind of the buzz, but it's just it's incredible. Rise of Resistance, in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and I just think if you could only do one attraction. There's several that I'd love to send you to, but I think
I've heard. I haven't been on that yet, but I've heard wonderful things. I've actually got catching up to do in Disney. I haven't been to Disney in about 5 years, probably longer. So I've still got to do Avatar. I've got to do Toy Story Land, and I've got to do all of the Star Wars stuff except for the original one.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
a lot to look forward to.
And if you wait just a little bit, you could do Tron. If you want.
Yeah, I plan on going for like
Tron
an actual vacation, hopefully in the spring, early spring. So I'll time that up with Tron.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, Matthew, new argument from my end on what you feel is that don't miss attraction at Disney. But let's move on to Universal. What is the do not miss attraction or ride there?
It's not the newest, but if I can only take you on one, it would be Escape from Gringotts.
So you would take Escape from Gringotts over Forbidden Journey?
I would. And the reason for that is if I could give you a tour and walk the track, it would be Forbidden Journey. You talk about all the elements, the carousel, the screens, the Kuka arms, the robotics. It's incredible. The issue I have with that, it's an incredible ride, but it still makes some people motion sickness. That this idea of I'm getting flipped in front of the screens. Again, not talking bad about it. Love the attraction, but that is the one reason why I would pick Gringotts over Forbidden Journey.
I understand where you're coming from. For me, we'll discuss this later as to what I think my favorite ride on Earth is. It's somewhere in Orlando. Spoiler alert. But if I had to chalk up from an academic standpoint a perfect ride, and you mentioned the flaw in my logic right there. So thanks for making me look like a fool on my own show. But that ride, Forbidden Journey, it's entertaining. You don't have to know Harry Potter. I don't know Harry Potter. I've only seen part of one movie, so I'm not familiar with it, but I love the theming. It's just thrilling enough, but it's not too thrilling. And it doesn't really expose how it works. So I think that's got a perfect, but you're right. I've seen a lot of people get motion sick on that. So spoiler. Okay. Do not miss ride at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Cobra's Curse. I just think that in terms of theming and being able to see it there at the front, that's incredible. But honestly though, and I might get some hate mail for this, Iron Gwazi is incredible. I just think that Cobra's Curse is just super unique in terms of the way that the cars spin and everything. It's a toss up, but probably need to go with Cobra's Curse.
I don't disagree with that one.
All right, SeaWorld.
I'm sorry, which part?
SeaWorld.
Oh, I think it's SeaWorld. I'm going to go with Mako. It is my favorite of all the coasters that are there. Obviously, in terms of every coaster on the planet. I'm not going to say it's the most unique coaster, but I just love it. I love how it's themed to the sharks. I love how when you're walking through the land and it does that last element over the guest pathway. Probably going to take you to Mako.
All right, moving on. The Do Not Miss show, and we'll start with Disney World.
I think I'm gonna go with Phantasmic. I loved it. It would have been my answer pre-COVID, and now that it's back open, it's my answer again. Like I said, I hadn't seen it, so they've added the new show scenes, but I just love
Yeah,
Phantasmic.
excellent choice. What about Universal? They don't have as many shows, but what's your favorite show? What's the one that you do not miss at Universal?
Well, not only do I think it's my favorite show at Universal, I think it's my favorite show in all of Central Florida, and it may be the best theme park show ever created. That is big things to say, but it's the truth, and that is the Bourne Stuntacular. It is absolutely incredible. I like to say that Indy at Hollywood Studios walked so that Bourne could run. Just the combination of live action, the robotic sets that are moving, the timing of how they move with the giant screen behind it, the other elements that are there. I won't give it away, but I love that show, and I could watch it again and
Yeah,
again, not
I
get tired.
last time I was at
All
Universal, I
right.
did it was Terminator. So I'm looking forward to doing Bourne next week.
Terminator was good, but I think that this is a
Hmm.
really big upgrade.
All right, let's talk SeaWorld.
Do not miss show.
Best show there.
Yeah, they've got a lot of shows there. Obviously with the animals and stuff. I'm going to pivot here and say Christmas. The Christmas celebration that they do, and being able to see all of the trees that are lighted up, the Christmas trees lighted up over the lagoon, and the way that the lights are timed to the music, and the show elements there. I just love it. I know it's a holiday thing, so you might not be able to see it during the summer, obviously, but I'm a big fan of the Christmas show at SeaWorld.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to their summer show too, which is similar. We've discussed this before, where it's lasers and fire and water, and it's just, ooh, dude. If the Christmas show is better than that, like I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Do not miss show at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
I think I'm going to go again seasonal. Hallow Scream. They've got some great shows there. You got things like themes and things like that. But just I'm going to go with Hallow Scream entertainment shows during the Halloween season in Busch
Awesome.
Gardens.
Cool. Don, what's our next category?
The next category is food item. And we'll start with Disney World. So if Ryan and I happen to stop at Disney World next week, what is our cannot miss food item?
So this is cliche. I think it's obviously not the biggest, the biggest steak or anything like that. But I think we go to Main Street, and I think that we get us a chocolate Mickey bar. Just walk down Main Street, have the chocolate bar. I know, but I just love it.
I was hoping you would say like the Mickey cheeseburger. That's like my
Well,
favorite
it's funny
thing.
because about a year ago, I was talking with my girlfriend's never been to the parks in Central Florida, so this is going to be a lot of her first experiences here next week. And about a year ago, we were talking about going to Disney. She's like, "I've always wanted to go there because I've wanted to try one of those pretzels shaped like the Disney head." And I'm like, they have like $100 steaks there, and you're excited about the pretzel that tastes like any other pretzel shaped like like a Mickey head. Okay. That's neither here nor there. Okay. Do not miss food.
Nostalgia,
There's
it
no
gets us.
nostalgia if
I
she's
don't
never
know.
been there. But I guess it's one of those things where it's at up here at Kings Island, it's the blue ice cream, and at different parks you associate one thing with it, and you really want to try it. And I could see where the Disney pretzel thing is pretty prevalent. That and churros, and the Mickey ice cream bars and so on. But do not miss food item at Universal.
Hot
Yeah,
butter beer. I think that there is nothing better than a cold evening walking through the park with a hot butter beer. It's my favorite thing.
awesome, good choice.
SeaWorld.
I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if I have a favorite food item, but I have a favorite food
Mhm.
process. And that process is me going to SeaWorld and eating a full meal with the all day dine that they have there. We're talking sides, entree, drink every 60 to 90 minutes. I mean, it's hard to beat that. I'm not necessarily looking for, gourmet. I'm just looking for not going hungry for the day. I love that. I will say, though, maybe runner up or maybe, honorable mention as well. I love Discovery
Mhm.
Cove, and they've got some good food at Discovery
Oh
Cove
yeah,
as well.
Don, have you ever been to Discovery Cove? Oh, you
I have
got to. I did
not.
it one day, and he's not kidding. Like, I mean, it can get expensive if you do everything, but man, is it worth it? Because when else are you gonna swim with dolphins, right? All right.
That's
So,
right.
what's the do not miss food item at Busch Gardens, Tampa?
I think I'm going to go with the same response. They run that same deal sometimes, the all day dine, and just to be able to go through the park. And actually though, I take that back. I love that they have a Chick-fil-A though as well, and I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A. So I love the deal, but waffle fries and looking at giraffes, I don't know, something cool about that. So all day dine, but separate to that is the Chick-fil-A.
Well, the giraffes seal the deal there. You can only, where else can you eat
I
Chick-fil-A
mean, I
and see
suppose
giraffes,
you
right?
can put on like National Geographic and eat waffle fries. Does that get you the same? Never mind.
It's not the same. Yeah, you don't have a Serengeti. Yeah, where you're gonna stand in the backyard?
Well,
That's a
what's
Serengeti.
funny is like, taste is like smell with the emotions as far as, you have certain connections and stuff and your brain is wired a weird way. So like if you eat Chick-fil-A at Busch Gardens Tampa, you may always affiliate Chick-fil-A with Busch Gardens Tampa, you know. Cuz
That's
I
true.
can tell
Yeah,
you now
that's a good
that like
point.
I'll smell like one of the things like when they asphalt the parking lot, it makes me think of my local park because they always seal it before opening day. They do a lot of that, so the park always smells that way. So I smell that no matter what time
Uh
of year it
huh.
is, and it puts me in a good mood. So that's a little too much information for this podcast, but
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Matthew. I know I hear this all the time. Is people will say like the pizza at the park tastes better than it does at the restaurant locations around town, and that. So let's talk about the waffle fries. Are they better at Busch Gardens than if you go to a Chick-fil-A on the street?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say yes because of the environment that I'm eating them in. It's cool to go through a drive-through. It's cooler to walk under a roller coaster. So I'm gonna go with better at Busch Gardens. Yeah.
All right. Well, Matthew, moving on to our final category here, we're going to talk about that. That upgrade experience. So Disney World, the can't miss upgrade experience at Disney World is.
So I got two. One is for the general public, the upgrade dessert parties. I just think it's cool. You've got dessert. You're watching a fireworks show. It is an upcharge, but I like that. And then in terms of like upcharge, when you talk about the VIP tours that they do, I just think that's incredible. Now that is a hefty price tag, but being behind the scenes, getting escorted up to the attraction, getting the spiel, from your tour guide of what you're seeing and all that kind of stuff. I think that's hard to beat.
Have you ever done the like behind the scenes of their like steam train?
No, no, but I would love to.
Yeah, that was one I was eyeballing before they shut the train
Yeah,
down.
Yeah.
and hopefully, and they've been teasing that it's going to open up soon. They posted some videos of it along with the Tron coaster construction. So
Well,
hopefully
Don and
soon.
I covered on the show
All right.
about a month ago that it's been reported that they've recalled the what Don, what was it, like the employees were recalled for training or whatever, do you remember that?
Yeah, for the train. Yeah, yeah, they did bring back the train cast members for training, and they've got the Tron crew. I saw that
Hmm.
through different social media posts that certain people, cast members, have been selected to be part of that crew. So it's getting close.
I love it.
Really exciting. What's the do not miss upcharge attraction at Universal?
I'm gonna go with so they have the tour as
Hmm.
well, which I love. Um, but for me, the initial can't miss is just getting a Universal
Yeah.
Express pass. If you're there on a day, right, daytime trip to the park, or if you're trying to hit as many of the Halloween Horror Nights houses as you can do in an evening, That pass, it can be a lifesaver. That pass, it can just make your life so much easier. Again, you can buy it, when you're at the park or before you're at the park, but also you can, stay on site, and certain of the resorts there offer it as well as a privilege of staying there. I'm a big fan of
Awesome.
that.
All right, let's talk SeaWorld now. What is the do not miss upcharge experience there?
So, we were talking about shows and stuff. There are some of those you can dine, with orcas, or you can, near the sharks, that sort of thing. But I think I'm actually going to go with Discovery Cove. I feel like when people look at that, sometimes there's confusion. Like, is it another park? Like, what is it? So going to Discovery Cove, but then doing the upcharge within Discovery Cove of being able to swim with the dolphins, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that if I want to add in, dining with Shamu is kind of fun. That's a different experience, and because that's the only one I've done,
Yeah.
so that was a good time. But that was a long time ago, so I don't know if it's the same thing or not. This is definitely stuff I want to look into. You're bringing up some feels, Matthew. Don't know how I feel about that. uh, let's talk Busch Gardens, Tampa. Favorite upcharge attraction there? Upcharge experience.
I think I'm going to go with the Serengeti. You can go out there, and they'll take you out on the safari jeep, and you're able to feed the giraffes and that kind of stuff. I just think it's really cool being out there. Really feels like you're in Africa. So
All right, so since we have a few minutes left here, let's do a little thing. This is off script, so Don doesn't even know about this. So we're gonna play a little game called This or That. So I'm gonna give you two things, two attractions, and you tell me which one you prefer over the other. So it's kind of like the other one, except I'm gonna actually pit two things up against each other. I'll do it, and then Don start thinking of yours or whatever. So
okay.
let's start off with the one that Don's thinking of right now, clearly, and it's Dollywood Express versus the Walt Disney World Railroad. Which one do you prefer?
Man, I hate to go against Dollywood, but I got to go with Walt Disney
Hmm.
World, mainly because of the more sights and sounds that you see. It's beautiful on Dollywood. Dollywood, don't hate me on this one. I'm sure Dolly Parton
I'm sure
listens to
she
this. So
does.
Dolly, I love you. I love you, Train. But I think I got to go with the Magic
Yeah,
Kingdom
yeah. I
on
mean,
this one.
like it's hard to decide because Dollywood's train. It's the only train I know that you have a park with so many awesome attractions and stuff, and it's like, did you ride the train though? So like, I'm sure it was a hard decision.
Yeah.
Don, what can you think of, this or that?
Okay, this or that. I'm going to go with It's a Small World or the Peter Pan ride.
Ooh. Um, you know, it's a Small World is classic. A lot of history there, but I just love soaring with Peter Pan. I just love soaring over those scenes there. So gonna go with Peter Pan.
All right, good
Okay,
choice.
let's try Cat in the Hat or ET.
Oh, come on. Okay, so air condition wise, Cat in the
Yeah.
Hat all day. I feel like Cat in the Hat has enough air conditioning to run its attraction and like three of
Hmm.
the lands at Islands of Adventure. So best AC Cat in the Hat. Experience, nostalgic, smell, Steven Spielberg becoming your best friend, all that for ET Adventure.
Oh
So I gotta
yeah,
go with
yeah.
ET.
Hi, I'm Steven
ET,
Spielberg, and
okay.
it's like, no, you're. Oh wait, no, it is. But yeah, the only thing that I remember the last time I rode it, it was so hot. We went in like July, and then that part when you go through like ET's homeworld, which I think is the first time you're exposed to that. It's
Oh yeah.
so hot in there, but I could not recommend ET more. It's such a cool ride. But Don, you're up.
Thunder Mountain or the Seven Dwarfs roller coaster. Which one?
Got to go with Thunder Mountain. One, just overall from an experience. I just personally think that Big Thunder Mountain is a better experience. I love the Seven Dwarfs coaster. I think that it's really cool. The train swing. It's cool that it has the indoor show scene as well. The animatronics are great. It just feels a little short. I just feel like overall, Big Thunder Mountain feels like a more complete experience, even though it's an older attraction.
Yeah, I have Big Thunder Mountain as one of my favorite coasters. When people say, "Hey, can you give me your top 10 or whatever?" and I have it in there, and people kind of raise their eyebrows, but I think it's an outstanding ride.
Agreed. And as a kids coaster, it still is fun. Like It looks good. You can go to Orlando, or if you want to go out to the one in California as well, a couple of different, special effects out there. But both of them, they just look good, but they're thrilling, right? I mean, it's not a world breaking, speed type coaster, but you don't get on and think, man, that was slow. Like it's a fun coaster, and I think children all the way to adults
Yeah,
can have a
one
good
thing
time
I've
on it.
noticed about Disney coasters specifically is that they're longer than you think they're going to be too. Like the experience time wise is very long. Um, yeah. Let's do Frozen or Maelstrom.
Ah, okay. So myself, and Matthew Miller, gonna go with Maelstrom. But I have a 3-year-old daughter. Actually, she turns 3 tomorrow. That could sing Frozen 30 times in a day and not get tired of it. So, being the father that I want to be and to make my daughter always happy, I'm
So
going
that's
with
a
Frozen.
solid Maelstrom for you.
Well,
And happy birthday to your daughter, by
yeah,
the
I think
way.
my daughter would go with that one too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, Tower of Terror or the Rock and Roller Coaster.
And just to confirm, Tower Terror, we're still at Walt Disney World.
All
Still
these
Walt
are,
Disney
unless
World, correct.
otherwise
Refurb.
specified, we're talking Orlando, Central Florida.
Okay. I got to tell you, I love walking through the queue with Aerosmith. I think it's great when you walk in the show building. The music is pumping. You go into the studio there. That's all great, but I mean, how in the world can you vote against Tower of Terror? I mean, it as a kid, it scares you when you're 5 miles away from the park and you just kind of see it above the skyline. You're riding the tram in, you can't miss it. You're walking up to the park, you can't miss it. Then you get in there, and just the way that the elevator, as it moves, obviously the vertical motion, but being able to move through those show scenes, that is an attraction. There are only a couple attractions, in my personal opinion, that are way ahead of their time, or not only were they way ahead of their time, it just feels like every decade they can hang with the best of what's being built. And to me, Tower of Terror is one of those attractions that it just feels timeless. And I think that, sure, like we were talking Rise of the Resistance earlier, it's new, it's an incredible attraction as well. But I think the Tower of Terror isn't too far behind. Even though it's a few
Yeah,
decades
a lot
older.
of people ask me what my favorite ride is, and I always tell them Tower of Terror. I think I alluded to this earlier in the show, but Tower of Terror. I love Rod Serling. I love the Twilight Zone, so that's what particularly tickles me. So that's pretty cool. All right, how about let's go with Spaceship Earth or the Great Movie Ride.
Mm.
Spaceship Earth in its current
Spaceship
iteration,
Earth.
sponsored by Siemens.
Okay. 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 Um, I know I might get some hate mail for this one, but I'm gonna go with Spaceship
Okay.
Earth, and this is the reason why. I loved the Great Movie Ride, but I always felt like they tried to do too much in the space. Obviously, they didn't call me when they were building the attraction, but personally, I could have taken about 2/3 of the movies that they put in the Great Movie Ride and then expanded those scenes. Again, it's hard to vote against the Great Movie Ride. It was incredible, but got to go with Spaceship Earth. Again, it's been there for a while. I love it. I love when you get off of the attraction, the interactives that they have in the queue. I know it's probably not a popular opinion, but I think I got to go with my gut and
So,
go with Spaceship Earth. Also, the new lights on
oh
the
my
outside of
gosh.
it, that's awesome. The icon, right? To be a lighted up icon, that should have been that way a
I can't
long
believe
time
it
ago,
wasn't. I can't
and that's
believe
what takes it over the top.
what a project it was to install all those in the geodesic sphere. There had to have been thousands of them.
Yeah.
But would you agree with me when I say now? Granted, like I'm speaking from an ignorant standpoint because I have not ridden Rise of the Resistance, but the Wizard of Oz scene from that is probably the most impressive scene in any theme park attraction until Rise opened. I think that I the first time I did Great Movie Ride, I thought the Wicked Witch of the West, was a real actress for the first like 15 seconds. That's how good of a job they did with it.
Ah, okay. So I will definitely. I feel like it was one of the most iconic scenes in that
Hmm.
attraction, and I definitely think that you were right in the time that it opened. I don't know if I would pit that scene up against Rise. Like maybe if we're talking open, like not opening day because there were
Right.
obviously issues, but let's say a month after opening day of Great Movie Ride to current day um, Rise of the Resistance, maybe. But I think it's I don't know if I would say it's as good. It's definitely the most
Well, no,
iconic
I'm not
scene,
saying
in
it's
my
as good
opinion,
as
of that
Rise, but I'm
attraction.
saying like between that ride opening and the opening of Rise, Rise took it over.
Oh,
But
I
I
see.
don't
I
know
see.
of
I'm sorry, I
anything,
misunderstood the
and
question.
I've ridden most things, in that time period, but I don't know of anything that's been as impressive as that, up until Rise open.
Yes, and I mean, if you think about it, I mean that attraction basically had that park on its back when it first opened, right? I mean, there was no Tower of Terror. That whole section of the park where Tower of Terror wasn't there. They've had no Toy Story,
Right.
no Star Wars. So I think you're right. I think not only was it impressive, it had to be because that was basically the draw of the park. Rushing to get open before
So
Universal Studios
I
closed.
was gonna tell this story because it popped in mine. But I think that you kind of know where I'm going at with this. If not, I'll hint you. But so the Great Movie Ride is responsible for Hollywood Studios. Do you know that story?
So yes, but being the scholar and informer and legal contracts man that I am, I'm going to let you tell the story, and I will nod
Okay,
along as you go.
so basically Matthew invented it. No, I'm just kidding. Matthew did not invent it. So essentially, my understanding is that this was an Michael Eisner era thing where they originally drew up the prints for the Great Movie Ride. I think it was at Epcot, right? Just nod. Okay, so they drew the blueprints for it, and then they were like, "Well, let's just do a whole park like this." Essentially, I mean, I'm sure that there was a little bit more from A to B, but essentially, the Great Movie Ride was what inspired doing a whole park based on, golden age of Hollywood and actually making films and so on. So God bless it for that because we got a heck of a park out of it. I think.
No, yeah, I think that is a heck of a park, and that is also a park that I think continues to
Hmm.
age well. Like I wouldn't say that Hollywood Studios was as good of a park, 10 or 20 years ago as I would today. Now, there were cool things about it, right? Like you think about, the playground that was there, you think about the backlot
Yeah.
trail. There's iconic things, but as an overall experience, I just feel like over the years, addition of Star Wars, addition of Toy Story, it's becoming more and more of a
It
full
was
day
growing pains
park.
because the last time I went there was nothing to do. You had Tower of Terror, so that was my money's worth. But Hollywood Boulevard and all that was all closed because they were building Star Wars. But now there's like three more
Mm.
lands since I've been there. You're just reminding me I gotta go. Yeah.
I was gonna say, when was the last time you were there? Like 1997 or
They were
something?
building Animal
Was that?
Kingdom. No, I'm just kidding. It was probably 6 years ago. Yeah, yeah. So not terribly
Okay.
long.
All right. Well, Matthew. Yeah, Matthew. Final this or that. We're gonna go down to Busch Gardens, Tampa, and Shikra or
Hmm.
Montu.
Man, Shikra or Montu? I really like Montu a lot, but I think I got to go with Shikra. Just you're going over the edge. It pauses before the drop. Before Iron Gwazi, it was basically the icon of the park. You're driving by, you could see it from almost every side of. I mean, basically, you can see it from every side of the park. Going floorless. A little bit after it opened, I remember the commercial where they're cutting off the floor of the coaster. What have we done? I think I got to go with Shikra.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with you on that too. And I love like the splash
Yes.
effect that you have, and even if you're not riding it, I
Yeah,
mean,
sit
just
there at the
fun to
barbecue
watch that.
restaurant. It comes around. It's kind
And
of going over the roof.
the
Yeah.
barbecue, yeah, you can't beat the smell of the barbecue when you're going down the drop and through those inversions and that. I mean, that just really enhances your
Agreed.
experience, doesn't it?
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that they're real. I would probably pick Montu, I guess. But man, Shikra is the one that I think that's still the icon of the park. I think Iron Gwazi has a lot of novelty and stuff, and I haven't
Yeah.
been on it yet because I haven't been down there yet this year. But I Shikra's. I mean, but like, let's not forget about Cheetah Hunt too. I mean, Cheetah Hunt is like such a long ride,
Yeah.
and it's got launches, and I think it's awesome. We haven't even talked about that today.
I have still not given them for getting rid of Rhino Rally. I just want to put that in writing. I am happy to buy a billboard at
Yeah, we'll
Tampa if
be
you
in.
guys want to go in. I just thought that was the coolest thing, and all I think is Rhino Rally. And I know it should. It's an incredible coaster,
Yeah.
but that's just that that's where my head's at.
So I rode Rhino Rally one time ever in my life, and my friends were like, "It's got this really cool thing that happens, but it's probably not going to work," and it worked. So for those
Oh,
of you
wow.
paying attention at home, why don't you describe it, Matthew? What's the special surprise that they had in Rhino Rally?
So there were rhinos, and they would rally them.
Yeah, they would cheer for the
So
team. Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, so imagine going, getting on a safari type attraction, let's
Hmm.
say a Jeep, right? Maybe you've been on something similar to Animal Kingdom, right? And we're going to go out. So we're, and this is not like animatronic animals. This is not a video. We're out in the wild, right? And we're driving through the Jeep, and it's incredible. And we're seeing the animals. And there is a section where we have to cross a bridge, like a dam area. And whenever we do, there is an accident that happened, and basically the river flooded, and it broke away the section of the bridge that the Jeep was on. So imagine being on a real Jeep, and you're really on a bridge, but the middle portion of the bridge is attached to an
Hmm.
underwater track. And so then it would break away. So now I'm on a Jeep on a piece of broken track that is floating in the river, and we floated down the river. And then eventually we ran into some debris where that section would stop, and then we drove, the Jeep drove off of there. But yeah, it was just so unique. I just remember the first time I was on that thing, and see, what I thought was going to happen is I thought that the bridge was going to shake a little bit, that sort of thing. I didn't realize that it fully broke away and that you floated down the river. And then, for those of you that are listening now, when you are on Chinook Coaster, that is when it goes through the river section, the canyon section there. That is the leftover remnants of where you used to float
Yeah, I
Rhino Rally.
remember. I sat all the way on the right side, so I remember looking down and seeing track in the water. I was like, "Why is there track in the water?" And I was like, well, "Do they use that for maintenance? Is it with the animals?" Because I know a fair amount about rides and marketing and social media and PR, but I don't know a whole lot about animals. So I was like, "How are they?" And then the thing shifted. I was like, "That's what that's for." Awesome. Well,
Yeah, it
hey,
was really
thanks
cool.
again for being on the show. We really, really appreciate it. We're looking forward to connecting with you in person next week at the IAPA convention. We have a lot of exciting things going on as far as we're going to be doing some interviews with ride manufacturers and different people in the industry, and there's going to be some announcements and some ride car reveals, and it's going to be so fun. So follow along with us on our Twitter, attractions_GRP. Find us at on your favorite podcast apps by looking for the Attractions Group podcast, and on YouTube, so you can see our excellent video that we made today uh, by searching for the Attractions Group podcast. And then Matthew, why don't you tell them one more time where to find you?
Absolutely. So I got it twofold here. So obviously, I am an executive at Orlando Informer. So if you are planning, a trip to Central Florida, if you're looking for information, please come see us there. But I also have to give a shout out. Personally, my social media is Weewa Miller. I'm from a little town called Weewa, Florida. Shout out to anybody from Weewa listening. So WEWA Miller. And I tell you that because I'm not trying to become Instagram famous, not trying to become Twitter famous, but I remember roughly 15 years ago being a high school, college student and wanting to be in the theme park industry more than anything. Wanted to be a roller coaster designer, wanted to work on these projects, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get started. And one of my favorite things in the world is to connect with people that were like me 20 years ago, wanting to do this. So if you're listening to this and you're wanting to get into the industry, by all means, please reach out to me. Again, that's Weewa Miller, Twitter, Instagram, across the board, and shoot me a DM, and I'd love to chat with you. Obviously not going to promise you a job, at Orlando or anything like that. But I've spent a lot of time designing attractions, and now helping lead Orlando Informer, and there's nothing that makes me more happier than helping people
That's
get their
awesome.
foot in the
And we
industry.
will,
So if you're listening to this and that's what you're wanting to
awesome.
do,
We will, of
please reach
course,
out.
link to the Weewa Miller Twitter, as well as the Orlando Informer Twitter and the Orlando Informer website. And we'll give a little blurb in both the description for YouTube as well as the description for, the various podcast apps. Awesome. So, yeah, well, thanks again. And once again, it's orlandoinformer.com for all of your Central Florida booking needs. So give them a check. Like one thing that I found on there that was awesome was your blogs. I think that they're well written and they're interesting, and just anyone with any interest. But so, Don, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
I feel with this episode, we learned a lot, we grew as people, and we appreciate
Yeah.
your time.
Matthew, any final thoughts?
Well, thank you guys. It's been great connecting with you, and always fun to talk theme parks. I wish you the best, for this episode and your future episodes, and can't wait to meet you in
Awesome. Well,
person in
thanks,
IAPA.
thanks again, Matt. We'll see you
right.
guys a lot next week because we're going to IAPA. We'll see you next week.